This morning's reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verse 1 and verses 7 to 14. Invite the poor to your banquet, not blanket. I've caught you. On one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. When he noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down in the place of honor, in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host. And the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, "Give this person your place." And then in disgrace, you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, "Friend, move up higher." Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. He said also to the one who had invited him, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers and sisters or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they might invite you in return and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. And you will be blessed because they cannot repay you. You will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." This is the word of the Lord.
It could be a tongue twister Sunday. Got a lot of words on this page. Oh, well, it's so great to be here. This time of year, I just noticed Jackie had on her seersucker pants, and you're really only allowed to wear those for like another couple days, right? Like Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then, okay, it's just, yeah, these are good. That's good. Yeah. Well, I mention it because, there have been times in my life that I've showed up to a party wearing the wrong thing, or even possibly without an invite. Oops. That being said, I've mostly avoided that happening. But what an awful feeling, right? Humiliating. Humility and humiliation, they're relatives of one another. And they just don't really seem to get along. Can you kind of remember a time where you may have felt a moment of humiliation? I can remember a time I was saved from being humiliated. I was an acolyte, a young child, about 10 years old, and our bishop in the Methodist Church was visiting in our little town of Cypress, Texas. And I was nervous to be up in front of the congregation as I was a new acolyte. And we processed into that church today, and I held that cross up. I did such a great job. I was so proud of myself. Until we got done with the procession, because I was so focused on carrying the cross in, I had no idea where I was supposed to sit. So I go and put the cross up, and by the cross, there was this beautiful, ornate chair with a nice big cushion in it. And I was like, well, as good as any. So I just sat down in this big, beautiful chair as the acolyte. And I could see across, the acolyte master was like making faces at me, but I was just an oblivious 10-year-old. I was like, what's the big deal? I'm comfortable. I did my job. And then the bishop, big man, ended up sitting in the acolyte chair that I was supposed to be sitting in, which was built for the body of a 10-year-old. And he just sat there all crunched down in the chair and never said anything about it. I heard an earful from the acolyte master after the service. Livid. Like, why would you do that? How dare you sit in that chair? That was so, never heard anything from the bishop. I thought he thought the whole thing was probably hilarious. And it would have been really humiliating for me. I was the type of kid that I would have felt really bad if he had said anything to me. So it's hard for me to imagine from this gospel reading the emotions and the reactions that Jesus' words would have caused in this conversation with the company he was eating with today. You know, he's been invited once again over to the Pharisees, the religious leader's house. And at first glance, when you read the words, they're just kind of solid common sense, right? Like polite advice. We may or may not take the advice, don't set yourself up for humiliation, show up to the party with the right things, all those things. But that being said, in the first century religious leaders living in the bounds of an honor and shame culture, this would have landed on them like a lead balloon. This is one of those passages where Jesus did not come to bring peace, but to point out a problem that was plaguing God's people. To be humiliated publicly in a social gathering, to be asked to be moved to a lower position, was a certain kind of social death. The snares, the chuckles, and the whispers would have reverberated in the room and in the heart and in the head. To move to a lower rung on the social ladder would have other social implications as well. You might just be a couple positions away from not being invited to that next fancy Aspen Snowmass Gala or open house. It came with a cost. And of course, in typical Jesus style, he didn't stop there with a simple social etiquette. But he continued by sternly warning his hosts not to take into account the social payoff and reward of their invitations. In fact, Jesus takes it a step further by saying they should not invite those who they know to dinner and respect, who are going to give them back something for their hospitality, but rather invite the outcasts, the poor, the sick, the socially undesirable. So this is not just a light suggestion to his audience today. Jesus means it. If you were to think about what Jesus' ministry is focused on and his constant work on inviting God into the lives of those who felt they didn't deserve it or expect such an invitation, so we can make pretty strong notions here that God expects us to do the same thing. So what is Jesus' expectation in this parable he says today? Could it be that we have a high probability of being really good at serving ourselves? This isn't just an Israelite thing. This is just one of those human being things that we have proven time and time again from poor human behavior that we are good at serving ourselves. And so Jesus wants us to stop counting costs and how things might benefit us. He expects us, that is, to stop counting the costs, the benefits, and the ways to reward our own actions and move our living to a place of holiness, a place where abundance and blessings aren't just nice ideas or polite advice or notions, but actually holy realities. And the truth is, and I'm guilty of this, we count all sorts of things. We even have things that count for us. We have a phone, a screen time, it'll tell you how many minutes. I've recently heard a statistic that we check our phones, adults, 344 times a day. Counting is so omnipresent in our lives that we almost forget it exists, especially because we have a device that counts for us. And I believe all the counting and calculating steals joy from us and takes a heavy toll on our relationships with one another and with God. And that being said, it might be good for us not to look at our phones quite as much as we do, but the truth is we just count all sorts of things. It doesn't matter if we're counting our bank accounts or the opinions of other people on what we're wearing. We continually count and worry and calculate sometimes even trying to find ways to show other people up. And the funny thing about counting is it's 100% learned. And while it's a necessary part of our cognitive development, somewhere along the way, it goes a little haywire. And it becomes an impulse in the most important things in our lives, especially when we let fear drive the bus. When we let fear drive the bus with the sure conviction that there is indeed not enough for everyone. Not enough money, not enough time, prestige, resource, and recognition. You name it. And that conviction seems sure, even unquestionable, because so much of our culture makes a serious profit off the notion that there is not enough. Just look at if a hurricane blows through, the hoarding of water and toilet paper in times of emergency, to gasoline and groceries, and so on. Consumerism has a dark shadow at times, especially in emergency, and we have a high propensity to serve ourselves. So here, today, in this gospel reading, Jesus sits with the temple authority, and he's giving them a hard time because he's trying to help them imagine a reality that begs the question, what if there was enough? Possibly, what if there was more than enough to go around for all of us? What would happen if our ability to share, what would happen to our own peace of mind and our own happiness? What if we didn't see this world as a competitive dog-eat-dog world, but as a great opportunity to be collaborators and partners and kinfolk, and we are here to distribute God's good riches and grace and love, and even our stuff? Have you ever heard the term helper's high? I'm sure you've felt it. It's basically a feeling of euphoria or a rush of joy that brings calmness and connection from the act of helping. Psychologically, it might be considered a phenomenon that enhances mood, reduces stress, anxiety, and depression. And it's not something that helps do this in the moment, but it's a memory and an action that sticks with you after the moment. It can bring you back to that place of connection and optimism and increase your self-worth. I can certainly recall some of my most connective and happiest moments were doing things for other people, even strangers. For the Christian, theologically speaking, this helper high is a result of living into the gospel truth. It's a process of making God's beatific vision tangible to other people, incarnational. That place where we can see the work of Jesus changing lives and behaviors for the collective good of creation. So this invitation Jesus was giving to the host of this dinner, and his continued invitation that Jesus gives us today, it's an opportunity, a reminder to stop counting and start helping. Start blessing. I mean, this is a critical part of stewardship. Stewardship in all the ways, not just our pledge drive, but we ask you for your help so that this church can live in the world. But it's also very related to the relationship in all the manners of ways, from dollars in our bank accounts to the social relationships. Being a good steward is being good at relationship, making time for family, friends, and even strangers. It's also about taking care of the world we live in, from the economy to the environment. There is a freedom in stewardship that turns our attention away from ourselves and turns it back towards God and back towards our neighbor. So what would the world feel like? What would it look like to live into the freedom Jesus offers in this parable? To stop calculating what others might think about us and give more attention to those around us who might need it most. Or even better yet, find the ways to bring your people, your family, your friends into the lives of other communities that need attention around our valley or wherever it is that you go home to. I know this is a big ask. It's extremely difficult because we all have busy lives. But this gospel reading today isn't Jesus saying it'd be really nice if you would be more helpful to those around you, is it? These words are a command. These words from Jesus are an invitation of the life freed from the unnecessary constraints and burdensome worries of what everyone else thinks. And it's an invitation to experience the joy of playing God's helper in this world and handing out the abundance gifts of dignity and worth and value, which we have all been blessed with. If you believe God knows you, then you also know God knows that we need a break from ourselves, don't we? The labyrinth is great for that too, by the way. From the relentless calculating that our culture encourages, from the stuff we think we need to accumulate to be happy, and Jesus is reminding us today that true joy comes from making the Holy Spirit known in this world. The joy you will find from blessing others with dignity and regard. St. Thomas Aquinas, an 11th century Italian priest known for his theological and philosophic work, wrote in De Regno, "The good of the many is more divine than the good of the individual." The Pharisees regularly fell prey to taking care of themselves over others. And so do we. And so will the people that come after us. And so have the people for as long as time has been. It's part of our human nature and we can't help it. And if it goes unchecked, it gets out of hand. And truth be told, all the groups and demographics pay a severe price as it undermines the mission of God in the world. So my brothers and sisters, we are created for each other. God sent Jesus into the world to remind us of this holy reality. Tomorrow is Labor Day. It was instituted to celebrate the hard work and labor that made this country so prosperous. And while we take a break from school or work or whatever it is, and celebrate in the different ways with good food and good rest, I hope, may we pray to be reminded how important we are to each other and to God. It's a special day today. We have a young man, Miguel, who wants to be baptized. We're going to do that in the creek. And you see, the thing about baptism, it's the great equalizer and reminder that we take water, right? Water, what is water good for? Water is good for cleansing. Water draws us in. We're made of water. So we're going to go down to the river after this service, and we're going to say some prayers. We're going to set some intention of what this water means. Miguel's going to get in the river with me, and we're going to put some water on his head and invite him into the life of Christ. And when we invite people into the life of Christ, the heavenly church changes because there's a new person, there's a new body, there's a new soul. So it opens up, and Miguel will be received into the household of God today. So I ask your help to invite and welcome this young man into the household of God. So after this church service, please